panels. We don't need as many shots as grinding because, you know, there's only so much grinding that you can really do to be cool and look hip and hipster. I can't, it's so cold in here. I got multiple sweatshirts on. I can't get my sleeve right. Jesus Christ. Makeup! Makeup! Nobody's coming. All right, let's do this. What's up, YouTube? This is Josh from Village Customs on a very cold Wednesday evening. On Sunday, we showed you how to cut this 1928 Model A roof down, and tonight we're going to show you how to tack it back up and weld after the tack. Since Sunday evening, we've done all the sheet metal inside. We had cut the roof off, left it off so that we didn't have to bump our heads getting in and out of the car. And like these little guys, man, they rock a bald head real bad, and that's what I got. So we left the roof off, we did all the sheet metal in here, and now it's time to weld the roof back down. So most Model A's you buy, most decent Model A's that aren't scrapyard junk. And you know, we do a lot of rat rod stuff. This happened to be a really nice car. We don't always do really nice cars. A lot of the cars here, like, you know, have deteriorating parts. The bodies are really rotted. But with that said, most of the Model A's that you'll find have these lines here. It's basically where the panels came together. They were bolted on the inner side, or some are welded, some are ground off and they're not there. It just depends on like what condition. You know, these are 90-year-old vehicles, so you never know what condition and what's going on with them. Some of these are old hot rods that were hot rodded 50 years ago and it was still an old car. So I mean, you really have to give that. But with that said, most of these have these lines. Where I start these chops, I match up these lines because you know that they're a constant if you have them. But I know that they're a constant because if that's straight, then we're good. Sometimes if you start on the window in here, it doesn't mean that it's straight. It just means that your window lined up. And then you go over to the other side, it's not lining up. So basically, that is your constant. Start on this line. That is where you start your chop. That's what we do. So here you see, you know, we've lined up that line. And once we push this together, it'll kind of come together. And, you know, a lot of times you have this misalignment right here. That's not really a big deal. You know, you want to get them as close as possible. And we're going to use a couple different tools to try to kind of like force them into place and bend and fold and push the metal where we want. A couple of these tools, very simple, body hammers. You need a decent body hammer. You got to have one. You got to be able to smack these things around. You know, even a ball peen hammer or something like that. But a hammer and dolly will go a long way. You can do 90% of your body work and anything with this on these old cars, you know, body hammer and a dolly. Second, some of these reach over clamps or anything like that, or you know, vice grip, any kind of clamp, something to kind of grip. And a lot of times you're pulling on this and moving it. And it's really nice to have something with a little bit more throat. You know, a clamp that you can actually get in here and lock down and kind of seal these things. Because we'll go in here and put it on the flat and then crank that tight, and then we can work this corner a little bit better, and we're sure that it's going to hold it together, you know, no gap. So that's basically what you want, at least minimal, to be able to do one of these chops. So I was talking about lining these up and coming down, and then this would be misaligned just a little bit. It's fine. See how like it kind of overlaps right there? It kind of doesn't really line up quite too better. You know, take your body hammer. A little bit of hammering, put a little weld on it. It'll look like it was meant to be. So this is how I chop cars. This is not how everyone else does it. I haven't even tacked a single thing on the rest of this. But what I do is I line this part up, I line that part up. I weld them. The reason I do that is because I'm going to put a lot of pressure when I start pulling on things, and I don't want these tacks, you know, if I tack there, tack there, tack over there, tack over there, I can't shove the body over to like change things, and it'll start popping tacks and things will get out of whack. So I put a lot of weld right here. I make sure that this is nice and this is lined up and it's welded solid. Then I move over here. And you can see the amount of misalignment here. I like to get my clamps right in there, and I can kind of push that misalignment out, which is actually forcing this back section out farther and farther, which is fine, because we're gonna come back and we're gonna do relief cuts in there. But basically, I'm gonna force this, you know, don't look at it and go, oh, it's misaligned, I gotta weld it, and I gotta pie cut and pie cut and pie cut and move. Just force it over. I mean, it's sheet metal, it doesn't care. It's 100 years old. Beat the crap out of it, it's fine. But we're gonna move that out, and then we'll do our relief cuts, and it'll work out just fine. So that's what we're gonna do right now. what we did here is we clamped this out together and pulled and just ran a little bit on the outside so that we can push a little bit, and then we clamped the front and we're gonna tack those too. But basically my goal here, because this is gonna be super misaligned, it's gonna be like that, and a couple different cars. Most cars that you get are junk if you're building rat rods, you know, they don't have the wood still installed or good wood still installed. This one has all of the wood and it's all in perfect condition, and really the wood holds the body in shape. If it's just metal, you can usually just kind of wiggle it around and not care because there's nothing holding it. This one has wood, so we've got to like work with it and push it around the way we want to. So if you watch in here, it's still misaligned real bad. Go on over to the other side. So this is what I was talking about. As you can see the amount of misalignment here. We'll open that up. I mean, crazy misalignment when you just like set it there, but when you push it in and clamp it, you'll get it to kind of V in. It's usually what we do. And then I'll show you how to make the inside a little bit better. Things are looking awesome. So what we did here, we clamped both sides with our big old Bessie clamps, off-brand Bessie clamps, and clamped these. We basically like made them stretch because they were misaligned by about ½ an inch out. Then we put a nice little tack in there. We kind of had to pry it just a little bit, put our tack on the front, and then we were able to remove our clamps. So we got that all set up. There's no gaps really or anything. So we're moving back to the center here. And this is some redneck stuff right here. This is some hillbilly, this is how we do it around here. Anyways, so we got a piece of metal in here, use wood or whatever, and a scissor jack. And basically what we're doing, like I told you, we basically stitched the outside so we had a little bit of grab on it, but it was still at a kind of a V like that. So basically now we're gonna bring it out and kind of center it up. We're just gonna put a little bit of pressure and it should bring our sides out, which it is completely flattened out. So, I'm just looking. So we got these welded out. They're nice and, for the most part, pretty straight, I believe. I don't know, let me check. Yeah, oh, look at that. I actually nailed it. Can't beat that. So those are pretty good. Just kind of rocking a little bit on my weld. We still have not opened the doors yet though. So basically when we open the door, that little section right there is a little bit raised, and we'll just like fix that, clamp it, move it, bend it, and open this, and then we'll weld the rest of this side out. But basically what I did, I welded all the way around this, and even onto the backside structure, there'll be like little flaps that used to nail into wood or still are nailing into wood, and that's really what's holding the structure of everything together. So you want to weld those together, and that'll kind of lock it in, and then it can't go anywhere. It's pretty solid. So body's really solid right now, looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get Zach to weld up the front. I'm gonna start working on the relief cuts in the back. You ready? We're just going with this.
Action.
So when we do our pie cuts, our relief cuts in the back, what you're gonna have is you're gonna have this big giant area where the top is gonna be pushed out farther than the bottom. What I usually do is I go to the center of that and I decide whether I want 1, 2, 3 relief cuts. The more relief cuts you put in it, you can put 20 of them, I don't care, you can weld as many of the relief cuts as you possibly want. The more relief cuts in this, the better it's going to fit up. However, it's kind of like you're running the race between, how many times you really want to weld and chance distorting your metal versus how straight you really want it. Most of the stuff with rat rods, we're using 1 or 2 relief cuts. It's very seldom, usually with a larger chop, we do 3. But on this one, I went to the center and I divided out and I put the relief cuts down the side. So we're gonna go to the other side, we're gonna do that. I've already got it marked out. And you can see how much misalignment's there. Basically, that was the worst spot, so we divided that up. I usually cut about 4 inches on either side of it, 3-4 inches. And like I said before, the more relief cuts, and the same thing applies to this, is the more you cut into it, the more you can align it without, warping things. So, but this is good enough for this car. And you can basically start to fold it in a little bit. You can see how things will start coming together a little bit better. So we'll do that, and we'll clamp that all up and make it nice, and tack it all, and then we'll weld it out. So what we've done here, we did our pie cuts here on both sides. We leveled everything out, pinched it all together, and then we Zach welded everything up. We buffed it down, got it looking good, you know, looking like a good chop now. And basically, we did that on the whole backside, all the way around, smoothed everything down, welded everything up. We've moved on to the doors now. We gotta get those things welded up and do the windshield. That's really about it. That's a whole chop for us. So the doors, a ton of different ways you can do the doors. Most of the time, not every time, most of the time, honestly God, most of those rat rods don't even have hinges that work and stuff. So, but when we have a nice car, most of the time, you just close the door, it does not line up. It's not how it works. It just doesn't. And it's hard to push it back in place. So, what makes it a lot easier when your door 90 degrees. A lot of times this kind of forces everything just because of the way the hinges are, and it'll help you line up, which honestly it's lined up the other direction now. So it helps it line up a lot when you pull it out 90 degrees. Don't ask me why, I'm not a scientist. We're just gonna go with what's laid out in front of us. But I know that usually when I do these doors, 90 degrees, tack them like that. So, and then we can kind of work with it with a clamp or something and get it just right. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, knock these out, tack them up, close the door, make sure they fit good, weld them up, see how it looks. Boink. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm gonna say action, action.
Action, action.
All right. So, now look at this misalignment here. You see a lot of misalignment in the doors and other things like this. Come on, peek on that. See how big giant misalignment, and it looks scary at first. I mean, it's way out there, big giant gap, but it's just some clamps. No big deal. Just kind of fit some clamps in there, pinch them together, give it a good twist. When you start doing that, you can weld it and start working it around. When it starts to take shape, you just kind of hammer it back to where you want it to look at, and you'll get rid of all that misalignment. These things are really thin, and you can move them around pretty easy. So really just some clamps and pinching and welding and hammering and putting a little bit of heat on things will really change the look of it. So we're gonna do that. So our chop is basically complete right now. We went ahead and welded all these, the pillars, the door tops, we pinched everything in. We beat up the gaps a little bit, smooth everything down enough. We're not body men, we're not doing the paint job. So, you know, this is basically as far as we go. And it's looking pretty good. Now we're just doing some door panels, but that has absolutely nothing to do with chopping the Model A, because we're also doing the interior. So, looks pretty cool. But, we're gonna move on to the windshield frame and show you kind of how we did that. We've already chopped our windshield frame, but at least I'll show you how we did it. All right, so this is what we have. This is the top corner of a Model A windshield. Basically, you have your screw here, and over on the side, you have two in right there. So do your best. Sometimes they don't come out how you want them to come out. Sometimes you got to really work, and most of the time you have to drill these out because they're old. You know, 90 years old, they look better than I will. Anyways, so you take that out, and you're gonna knock this free. And that's what you're gonna end up with. There's also a little piece here. They tend to always break. Just depends on how good your Model A is. So basically what we do is a lot of times we use a bevel square, and basically we trace this square, or this angle, however far that we've chopped. This was a 6-inch chop, so we went 6 inches down. We transferred that angle to down here. And I'll show you a bevel square in a second what that looks like. But basically, we just cut across there, cut it nice and flat, and then we have to open up this area so that the windshield can slide back down in there, and then we'll drill it so you can stick a bolt back in there. So that is how we do our windshields. Pretty simple. There you have it. No welding, no nothing, just being slick. That's how we do around here. So we installed our windshield, we installed our visor, and Kyle's car looks absolutely amazing. Really happy how this came out. Chop was super easy to weld up. Everything was nice and tight. Really just, I mean, can't be happier. I mean, it's pretty much ready for a paint job over everything. And we did finish the interior, the steering and all that stuff. That really didn't have anything to do with the chop, but we went ahead and finished everything. And really happy how everything came out, and I'm sure Kyle will be too. So hopefully you enjoyed our videos. Hopefully this was a little bit of help for you if you're chopping one of your Model A's. And any questions, put them in the comments. Thank you for watching.